Today, we highlight one of the most dangerous and clever thefts in the history of the United States, a brilliant theft executed with extraordinary courage and audacity. It puzzled the American authorities and put them in an embarrassing position in front of the world. The intriguing part of this crime involved complex secret alliances, a crazy love affair, and shocking secrets and mysteries that are hard to believe. The American government tried to keep the details of the case under wraps because it was not just a theft of $17 million, but also a direct slap to the security agencies, revealing their weakness in dealing with highly intelligent criminal minds. Thanks to its scale and impact, the American media dubbed it the heist of the century in the United States. The chapters of this mysterious story began in the early hours of Sunday, the 5th of October, 1997, when the Charlotte police received a report from Tammy Ghantt stating that her husband, David Ghantt, was missing. He had left his workplace at the Loomis Fargo warehouse after finishing his night shift, but he did not return home. He suddenly disappeared, leaving behind many questions without any trace indicating his whereabouts. The police quickly moved to his workplace, where officers found David's truck parked in front of the warehouse door. The fence was open, and the warehouse door was also open. Moments later, the person in charge of Loomis Fargo arrived and confirmed to the police that David was absent from work. Afterwards, worrying things began to appear. The vault was tightly closed, but all its keys mysteriously disappeared from the company truck. The Federal Bureau of Investigation was immediately called. During the investigation, it was revealed that a huge amount had disappeared from the company's vault, $17 million in cash, mostly in $20 bills that cannot be traced. Additionally, the crime scene investigation teams did not find any evidence indicating the identity of the thieves. The warehouse was completely empty. There were no signs of break-in or violence, but the investigators were seriously considering David's fate. Is he a partner in this crime? Or is he a kidnapping victim facing real danger? The investigations continued until the police found surveillance camera recordings revealing the unexpected surprise. David was the one who carried out the theft alone. He appeared in the video, calmly emptying the safe. He took the stolen items with him and then left the place loaded with millions. This bold theft was an example of meticulous planning and precise execution, leaving the officials of Loomis Fargo in shock as they looked at their vault, emptied of all their money. The disappearance of $17 million in cash with scattered and non-sequential numbers and invoices posed a significant and complex challenge for the authorities. The investigations expanded around the warehouse, where the investigators began searching for any evidence the thieves might have left behind in a surprising twist. The investigations revealed that the theft was executed in a meticulous and carefully planned manner, leaving the investigators grappling with a flood of questions. The audacity of the crime not only surprised the police but also astonished the entire population of Charlotte, who were not accustomed to such crimes being carried out right before their eyes without them noticing, and left them fascinated, following the details with passion and curiosity. Thus began the cat-and-mouse game between the authorities and the elusive perpetrators. After a weekend full of gathering evidence, the Federal Bureau of Investigation found itself facing a new mysterious challenge: the disappearance of David Ghantt with a small truck loaded with more than $17 million in cash, without serial numbers and impossible to trace. During the first 24 hours, he vanished without leaving any trace, making finding him a top priority for the authorities. Police officers began investigating David's wife, Tammy, and one of his sisters in an attempt to understand his personal lifestyle and way of thinking. According to their statements, David lived a simple and quiet life. But Tammy provided important information indicating some accumulated debts on his credit cards. Tammy also tried to convey to the investigators the idea that her husband might have been threatened or kidnapped. Despite the intensive interrogations, no concerning indicators appeared in David's behavior before the theft, which increased the mystery of the case. On the other hand, David worked long hours managing the household bills. His wife, Tammy, was committed to a strict budget with no room for leniency. Her behavior showed no signs of pressure or demands that might lead David to deviate or change his usual behavior, which added to the investigators' confusion. To quickly locate David, the authorities first had to enter his name and publish his picture in the National Crime Database. But that was not possible without issuing a formal indictment, which prompted U.S. Attorney Mark Clowey to expedite the procedures and secure the necessary charges within just 48 hours of the theft. And from here, the investigation into the Charlotte operation turned from a local case into a nationwide manhunt. David Gantt's picture was distributed across the country, and the authorities issued a public appeal urging citizens to report immediately if anyone saw him. And since David had large sums of money in his possession, the Federal Bureau of Investigation realized that he had the ability to move freely and hide for long periods. Therefore, security measures were tightened at airports and bus stations in an attempt to prevent him from leaving the state or fleeing the country. Images of David were published and distributed across all transportation means and travel stations. Police officers began searching with all truck rental agencies for any truck that might have been rented by someone matching his description. Despite all the intensive efforts, the search operations did not yield any tangible results. In a race against time, the Charlotte police intensified their efforts to solve the mystery of David's disappearance and where the missing money might be hidden. At the same time, the media began covering the incident with great interest. It quickly became the talk of the town, and everyone eagerly awaited any updates related to the case that puzzled investigators and astonished international public opinion. FBI agents recalled a similar incident that occurred in the year 1997 in the city of Jacksonville, Florida, when a former employee of Loomis Fargo stole more than $18 million. Federal officer William Perry, who was in charge of the previous case, spoke and urged his colleagues to expedite locating Ghantt to prevent another Jacksonville disaster. The investigations into the Jacksonville incident had led police officers to storage facilities in North Carolina, where the thieves had hidden the money, prompting investigators to re-examine those sites, but to no avail. Every lead in the investigation seemed to lead them to a dead end. And amidst that, the Federal Bureau of Investigation faced an additional challenge that increased the complexity of the mission. The timing of the theft coincided with the start of the Coca-Cola 600 NASCAR race, one of the largest annual events in Charlotte, which brought thousands of visitors from across the country, making it difficult for investigators to track any potential suspects amid this massive influx of strangers. With growing concerns about David's safety, the authorities began to seriously consider the possibility that he was harmed by unknown associates, making it crucial to find him as soon as possible before it's too late. And after days of his disappearance, the first traces of the theft finally appeared when a man found a parked truck while mowing the grass in a wooded area less than 10 miles from the Loomis warehouse. When FBI officers arrived at the location, inside they found a large sum of money amounting to $3.3 million. Mostly in $20 bills, along with surveillance tapes missing from the Loomis warehouse, as well as David's gun and the vault keys. This discovery raised many questions among the investigators. Why did he leave these things behind? Did he abandon them out of fear or haste? Or was the car's space insufficient? The evidence they found sparked a wave of speculation and analysis within the Federal Bureau of Investigation about the hidden messages behind leaving the videotapes in an abandoned place. Was it deliberate mockery from David, or perhaps the result of betrayal or interference from an unknown partner? Despite finding the truck and part of the money, David and the other suspects remained out of sight. More than $14 million remained missing. The theft of $17 million led the Federal Bureau of Investigation to believe that Ghantt was not working alone, but was involved with a complex network of partners who are difficult to identify. And when investigators delved into David's background, two contradictory images emerged. The first was a diligent and law-abiding employee. On the other hand, there emerged traits of a disgruntled employee going through difficult personal and psychological pressures. To understand his motives more, FBI agents conducted more than 100 interviews with people from his family and professional circle in search of any clue to explain his sudden change. Despite the clear contradiction in his personality, surveillance camera footage showed David calmly and methodically loading boxes into the truck. This scene led the investigation team to question whether he was acting on his own spontaneously or if he was executing a plan imposed on him under threat. The focus quickly shifted to his personal relationships, especially his relationship with his former colleague, Kelly Campbell. Some testimonies indicated a close connection between them. During the investigation with her, Kelly completely denied any intimate relationship between her and David. Here, the investigators noticed a significant contradiction between what the witnesses said and what Kelly insisted on, leading to increased suspicions about her potential role in the case and to assess her credibility. The Federal Bureau of Investigation decided to examine the phone records of Loomis. After a thorough search and continuous review of the calls, investigators discovered outgoing calls from inside the warehouse to David Ghantt's phone during the robbery, which strengthens the hypothesis of collaboration between them. They also found in Ghantt's mobile phone records the entry of the number 143, a common code used to signify the phrase, "I love you." The investigators concluded from those calls that there was a person having an affair with David involved in the theft. And so, amidst a maze of contradictions, conflicting testimonies, and unanswered questions, the Federal Bureau of Investigation continued to delve into a complex web of relationships, potential motives, and secret messages believed to be the hidden driver behind the operation. And just 1 week after the Loomis Fargo robbery, investigators decided to feature David Ghantt's picture on America's Most Wanted, which would lead to a large influx of reports and information from citizens. But things did not go as planned, as the news coverage clashed with a major baseball game, which reduced the news's reach to people and left the investigators greatly disappointed, especially since time was passing quickly and $14 million had not been found. As time passed, and to keep the case alive in people's minds, Loomis Fargo announced a large financial reward of $500,000 for anyone who provides information leading to the recovery of the money or the arrest of those involved. As a result, the Federal Bureau of Investigation received a flood of reports and information, prompting them to create a database to organize and track this massive amount of reports. The reports ranged from suspicious sightings of people spending money extravagantly to names linked to potential involvement in the case. One of those reports pointed to a man named Eric Payne, who was seen spending his money recklessly after the robbery. However, after investigation, no direct connection was found between him and David Ghantt. Amidst this flurry of leads, a pivotal clue emerged that led investigators to a man named Steve Chambers living in nearby Gaston County. Chambers had bought a luxurious house for $600,000 in cash. This deal raised a lot of suspicions. Upon reviewing his financial record, investigators noticed excessive spending. He had bought a car, BMW Roadster luxury car in cash, and paid for many transactions, giving the impression of illegal money, whether from drug trade or perhaps from stolen loot. The police began closely monitoring the movements of Chambers and his family, especially after their sudden move to a residential complex, luxurious in the Curtin area. This move surprised the neighbors who knew nothing about them before. When his wife Michelle was asked about the source of their money, she claimed that her husband was a retired professional football player who made a fortune from gambling winnings at a luxury casino in Atlantic City. in addition to selling laundromats he owned in Texas. But those stories seemed weak and unconvincing, raising increasing doubts among investigators and local residents. But this story did not convince any of them, especially since Michelle made most of her purchases using bundles of $20 bills, the same denomination that was stolen from the Loomis Fargo warehouse. With suspicions rising further, Carton Police Chief David Ghantt informed the Federal Bureau of Investigation after receiving reports from the town's mayor, Mark Rosie, who expressed deep concern about Chambers' actions. After checking Chambers' background, investigators discovered that he had a prior criminal record and was connected to gangs known for passing bad checks. Despite his excessive spending, the Federal Bureau of Investigation had no concrete evidence linking Chambers to the missing $14 million. After that, the entire investigation shifted towards Steve Chambers, who became a central figure in the case in the eyes of the police officers, especially after his luxurious lifestyle caught everyone's attention and raised their suspicions. Despite all the troubling indicators, the challenge remained for the Federal Bureau of Investigation to prove his direct involvement in the theft and the disappearance of David. Weeks after the disappearance of Ghantt, along with $17 million from Loomis Fargo's funds, the FBI faced significant difficulties in tracking him and identifying his partners. Where investigators sorted through numerous reports indicating suspicious expenditures throughout the city of Charlotte, and they began analyzing bank records and monitoring suspicious cash transactions that required a long time and careful attention. Despite all these efforts faced by the investigators, they managed to obtain two important reports provided by bank tellers about suspicious financial activities. The first report pointed to Michelle, Chambers' wife, who deposited a large sum of money in cash at one of the banks. In the absence of any concrete evidence, the investigators were unable to directly link her to the stolen money. As for the second report, it focused on both Steve Chambers and his wife, Michelle, especially after they were repeatedly seen making large cash deposits and obtaining private safety deposit boxes. This strange financial behavior prompted the authorities to intensify surveillance on them, both from the ground and the air, to monitor their movements more precisely. In the quiet town of Cramerton, where Chambers resides, local residents noticed the appearance of unfamiliar cars and planes, which led to the spread of bad news among them. This prompted Police Chief David Ghantt to send a message to the residents asking them to be cautious, fearing that their actions might negatively impact the investigation being conducted by the local police. At the same time, the Federal Bureau of Investigation was also afraid that Steve Chambers would discover he was under surveillance, so the investigators continued to follow him very cautiously. The couple remained oblivious in their lavish spending, especially with the holiday season approaching. They bought a new truck and a diamond ring worth $43,000 in cash. However, police officers continued to struggle to link these extravagant expenditures to the money stolen from Loomis Fargo. On the other hand, the FBI delved deeper into its investigations by tracking communication networks and analyzing old messages and calls. The investigations revealed a romantic relationship between David Ghantt and his former colleague Kelly Campbell. And when the investigators contacted her again to discuss with her, she denied everything and refused to take a lie detector test, displaying nervous behavior during her interrogation, which increased the investigators' suspicions about her possible involvement in the case, despite the lack of any conclusive evidence against her, except for some love letters. As established through phone investigations, there was another suspect named Eric Payne, who also came under the investigation's scrutiny after the police revealed repeated phone calls between him and David, making him classified as a new suspect within the network of accomplices. Based on this information, David Ghantt continued to remain out of sight, leaving the Federal Bureau of Investigation in a whirl of doubts and possibilities, drowning in a long list of suspects, but without any conclusive evidence directly linking them to the theft. At the same time, Steve and his wife Michelle continued to spend their money lavishly, unaware that they were under close surveillance by police officers. And at the beginning of the year, 1,998 suspicions about them increased, especially after they purchased a new furniture store, a step investigators considered additional evidence of their involvement. Despite all efforts, the police officers struggled to find any news or information about David or his whereabouts, whether he was alive or dead. Therefore, the investigation period was extended, and 3 months after the robbery, Kelly Campbell was spotted visiting the furniture store with Michelle Chambers' wife. This field appearance provided a new lead for the investigators. When they traced the license plate of the car they used, a minivan, it turned out to be owned by Steve Chambers, which added strong new evidence to the case file. With continued close surveillance in the Charlotte area, investigators noticed in January 1998 that Michelle Chambers deposited an amount of $88,000 in a bank. In this process, she made a grave mistake by using a money strap bearing the logo of Loomis Fargo. This small detail that Michelle might not have noticed was the conclusive evidence long awaited to link the deposited money to the theft. But instead of making immediate arrests, the Federal Bureau of Investigation chose to wait, hoping that continuous surveillance would lead them to David Ghantt personally. This decision was a crucial step in the course of the investigation. Later, a phone conversation was recorded through wiretapping, during which Kelly Campbell was seen receiving a digital message from David Ghantt. Through this correspondence, the authorities confirmed that David was still alive. The Federal Bureau of Investigation decided to tap the suspects' phones, and investigators continued to monitor their conversations in hopes of gathering more evidence. However, most of their talk was just ordinary mundane conversations that offered nothing concrete. Nevertheless, the police officers did not lose hope. In one of the calls, Kelly Campbell dropped a shocking surprise when she told Michelle Chambers that David Ghantt contacted her and asked for more money. This statement shocked the investigators, who assumed that after Ghantt fled with $17 million, he would no longer need more money. But more dangerous than that, what the investigations revealed is that Steve Chambers was planning to get rid of David permanently, fearing he might turn into a witness against him if he were caught. Strong indications appeared that they arranged a meeting with Kelly at the furniture store to discuss this dilemma. Amid these rapid developments, the investigators found themselves facing a real dilemma. Should they make immediate arrests or continue surveillance in the hope it would lead them to David Ghantt's location? The Federal Bureau of Investigation decided to choose patience and proceeded with monitoring communications and wiretapping calls. Although most of the conversations between the suspects seemed ordinary and superficial, the investigators picked up discussions that caught their attention about opening a bank account in the Cayman Islands and hiring a bodyguard. In one of the calls, Steve Chambers and Kelly Campbell discussed an expected call from David Ghantt. They agreed to send a digital message to set the time and place for the call. The FBI saw this as a valuable opportunity to capture Gantt's voice and confirm that he was still alive. But when the scheduled call time arrived, Kelly Campbell did not show up as previously planned, causing great frustration for the investigators. However, hope was renewed when Kelly revealed in a later conversation with Chambers that she received a new digital message from David Ghantt, and they set another time for the call. This time, the Federal Bureau of Investigation was prepared and succeeded in intercepting the call, clearly recording David's voice to finally confirm that he was still alive. Although they failed to pinpoint the exact location of the call, hearing Gantt's voice was the eagerly awaited news. With this discovery, the Federal Bureau of Investigation found itself in a race against time. especially after they discovered that Chambers and Campbell were planning to eliminate him as soon as possible. The investigators tried once again to capture Ghantt's voice to pinpoint his location accurately, but the surprise came by chance during a casual conversation between Kelly Campbell and Steve Chambers. Kelly inadvertently revealed that David Ghantt is hiding in Cozumel, one of the tourist islands in Mexico. This information was the long-awaited key. Now the investigators finally knew where Ghantt had fled since the moment of the theft. At the same time, David was pressuring Chambers, demanding more money, which led the latter to make a dangerous decision and hire a hitman named Mike McKinney to end Gannett's life and rid himself of the burden. But the Federal Bureau of Investigation, after gathering the threads of the conspiracy, moved quickly to prevent the potential murder. And on the 1st of March, 1998, 5 months after the execution of the grand heist, a team of investigators was sent to Mexico, specifically to the town of Playa del Carmen near Cancun. There, David Ghantt was quietly arrested without any resistance. After his arrest, he was transported on a private plane to the city of Charlotte, where he was placed in custody and presented to the Federal Bureau of Investigation for questioning. There, he began to recount the details of the plan that had puzzled investigators for months. He explained how the robbery took place and who was involved, revealing the threads of the conspiracy little by little. David was an employee at Loomis Fargo. He was not satisfied with his financial situation. This psychological frustration opened the door for Kelly Campbell, his secret lover, to tempt him with the idea of quick wealth and convince him to exploit his position to carry out the heist of $17 million from the company's funds. Due to the financial distress he was experiencing, Ghantt accepted the offer without hesitation. David also stated that Steve Chambers was the mastermind behind this operation, who meticulously organized everything. His plan included fake identity cards and thorough security research on the weaknesses in the company's warehouse protection system, in addition to recruiting people ready to flee, hide, and live with 2 different identities, one apparent and the other hidden, to avoid exposure. And on the morning of October 4th, 1997, David Ghantt claimed to his wife, while hiding deep inside himself, that he would never return to her. On that day, he was scheduled to work alone inside the Loomis Fargo facility. He agreed with the gang to carry out the robbery early, but they encountered an unexpected obstacle. The appearance of a new trainee in the warehouse forced Steve Chambers and Kelly Campbell to stay in the car and wait near the company headquarters. David was in the Loomis warehouse, waiting for the last truck to arrive, and had to deal with the new trainee cautiously, waiting for the right moment to be alone in the warehouse. As soon as the last truck arrived, the trainee left moments later. Then Ghantt began stealing the money, transferring millions from the vault to the company truck, unaware that surveillance cameras were recording his every move. Meanwhile, Steve Chambers and Kelly Campbell were anxiously waiting in their car outside the warehouse, and the tension increased as Ghantt took longer to appear. By 5 o'clock in the evening, Ghantt left the warehouse carrying the money in the truck. Chambers and Kelly followed him. Then they headed towards a printing company called Reynolds, where Eric Payne was waiting for them with a rented truck. And when they arrived, Ghantt handed the truck key to Eric without realizing they had run into a sudden problem. None of them knew which key opened the truck door. After several exhausting attempts, they finally found the key that opened the truck door. Then, Ghantt and Kelly quickly left the place, heading directly to the airport. Upon arriving at Columbia Airport, they faced an unexpected problem. There were no direct flights to Mexico. At the last moment, they decided to head to Atlanta, and from there, they continued their escape plan until they reached Cozumel in Mexico. There, they began to enjoy their new wealth, which they managed to carry with them inside a blue barrel without being noticed by the authorities. At the same time, the rest of the gang took the truck loaded with money along with Steve's car and headed towards a nearby forest, where they transferred the money from the truck to the car. But they faced a new problem, which was that they couldn't unload all the money from the truck because the car was completely full, and for this reason they had to abandon it and leave part of the money inside. As for David Ghantt and Kelly Campbell, they enjoyed their life in Mexico. After a short time, Kelly Campbell returned to the United States. As for Ghantt, he soon began to face a severe financial crisis because he couldn't take his full share of the loot and was forced to wait for the gang to send him the rest of his money. By the end of October, Ghantt received the first installment of the money through a person named Mike McKinney, sent specifically by Steve Chambers. But McKinney was not only tasked with delivering the money, but also with monitoring Ghantt until the gang found the right time to eliminate him. When McKinney met Ghantt, he handed him a small package of money. He became suspicious, realizing that he would not receive his true share of the millions, and that his partners in the operation had stolen his portion. He tried to contact Steve Chambers, but his calls were ignored. One day, while David was walking around Cancun, he noticed a strange person following him. And as soon as he looked closely at his features, he suddenly remembered that it was the same man who had given him the money before. At that moment, Ghantt realized that he was being pursued not only by the police but also by his partners in crime. Overwhelmed by fear, he understood that he needed to make some changes to his appearance to avoid being recognized. At the same time, he was in desperate need of money, so he had no choice but to disappear from sight. One day, Janet was sitting in a public park reading comic books and listening to music in an attempt to escape reality. A strange man approached him, introduced himself as Robert, and warned him about Mike McKinney, telling him that there are people in Charlotte who want to kill him. Here, David was certain that he would not get his share of the stolen millions, and he paid Robert $2,000 and thanked him for the warning because he was keen on his safety. And from that moment, he took stricter measures to disappear. He started changing hotels constantly, using aliases and avoiding public places. He only left his room at night. He lived in the shadows, hiding from an impending danger he did not know when would occur. Day by day, David's need for money increased. Driven by desperation, he made a grave mistake. When he called Kelly Campbell and asked for her help, this call was enough to pinpoint his location. The gang and the police traced the call, and soon his hiding place was revealed. With coordination from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Janet was arrested in Mexico under the leadership of Agent Rosie. Despite his arrest, Janet was not ready to remain silent, and contrary to expectations, he began cooperating with the investigators, revealing all the intricate details of his relationship with Kelly Campbell. This attracted the investigators' attention and paved the way for discovering new evidence in the case. And on the morning of March 2nd, 1998, 5 months after the Loomis Fargo robbery, an FBI plane landed at Charlotte Airport amid heightened security. The investigators' goal was to arrest the rest of the gang members before news of David Ghantt's arrest in Mexico reached them. Indeed, the local police and the Federal Bureau of Investigation moved quickly and managed to arrest most of those involved. The beginning was with the arrest of the mastermind of the operation, Steve Chambers, as the police raided the furniture store he owned to arrest him, followed by his wife Michelle, who had previously sworn she was innocent. Afterwards, Kelly Campbell was arrested and her house was searched, where the authorities seized a collection of suspicious items, including credit cards, electronic devices, jewelry, and sums of money. Mike McKinney, Eric Payne, and Scott Grant were also arrested, each in a different location. The arrests resulted in the recovery of more than $1 million in cash, as well as many valuable items purchased with the stolen money. The police found over $720,000 in cash inside Chambers' house alone, in addition to 460 pieces of luxury items. Among 21 defendants in the case, 20 people admitted their guilt, while only one person maintained their innocence. Jeffrey Goller, Chambers' lawyer was also convicted of money laundering. Thanks to the efforts of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the authorities managed to recover approximately $10 million of the stolen money, as it was cleverly hidden in safety deposit boxes, lock drawers, shoe boxes, and even inside another blue barrel buried underground right after the night of the theft. The gang also faced strict legal consequences due to Kelly Campbell's cooperation with the authorities. She received a reduced sentence of 5 years and 10 months in prison. As for David Ghantt, who dreamed of a luxurious life with Kelly, he was sentenced to 7 years and 6 months in prison. And in February 1999, a public auction was held to sell more than 1,000 items purchased with the stolen money. More than 5,000 people attended. The auction generated revenues exceeding $360,000, which were handed over to the insurance company Lloyd's of London, which compensated the losses of Loomis Fargo. The case highlighted the gang's naivety, as they focused only on quick wealth without any long-term planning. Although Ghantt lost everything, he showed no remorse, even stating later that he might do it again if given the chance. In the end, the Federal Bureau of Investigation succeeded in closing the case of the Loomis Fargo robbery gang completely, as all those involved were arrested and brought to justice. A large portion of the stolen money and the luxury items purchased with it were recovered and auctioned off. This story remains a living testament that illicit money does not guarantee a lasting victory, and that justice ultimately prevails. And you, dear viewer, share your opinion with us in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to our channel to receive all the latest updates.